Right back, hour number 2. Top of the hour, Power SportsGrid College football today. Donnie Rightside along with Joe Lisi here going over every single game that you need to know, the biggest moments, and certainly the biggest prop bets that you can possibly have. This is where we go over things, Joe, with a fine-tooth comb. And understand this, we do got some big action in Oklahoma starting off at a noon kickoff. But first, we're going to the SEC once again. 3:30 p.m. Eastern today, Joe. Missouri and Vandy. Diego Pavia and the boys looking to do something special this year. Could they possibly win the SEC? Vanderbilt, my goodness.
Yeah.
You take a look at the line, Joe. Don't you interrupt me right now. 3.5 to 2.5, 53.5. I know you're excited. There you go.
No, I was just looking. I really like Missouri in this matchup. Again, I think I took Hardy. I was just looking at the bet. 110 plus yards at plus 169. I took him anywhere from 90 all the way up to $110. His number today is 86.5. You're getting a little bit of a discount. Why? Because you looked 2 weeks ago, Donnie, prior to the Alabama game. Ahmad Hardy led the FBS with 730 rushing yards, 7 touchdowns. He's been held to 52 and 58 in back-to-back weeks. Back-to-back road games for Missouri, I don't care. I think the tempo of Missouri, the speed perspective, Missouri has the type of personnel to exploit Vanderbilt's defense that's holding opposing offenses to only 3.3 yards per rush. LSU can't run it the way Missouri can. Give me the Tigers, but I like Ahmad Hardy to have a huge day today at 110 plus.
Now, is there any chance that you like Missouri today for the simple fact that LSU got beat last week by Vanderbilt?
No.
Is that where your handicap?
No, I'm breaking it down. I watched that. I watched both games. I watched Vanderbilt, LSU, and I watched that late-night battle, Missouri and Auburn. And I'll just say this about Auburn's defense. They are one of the best, most physical defenses potentially in all of college football. I put them right up there. You want to talk about Oklahoma? You want to talk about any other dominant defense? They're holding opposing offenses to 86 rushing yards per game, 3.5 yards per carry. Their offense is terrible, not their defense led by DJ Durkin. So, again, I was very impressed, even though it was a struggle, by how Missouri was able to pull that game out. Tough environment. Backs against the wall. Now you get Vanderbilt. From just a recruiting aspect, I think Missouri has better athletes than Vanderbilt does.
Let's get a prop perspective on this game, Joe. We look at the 2 starting quarterbacks here from a passing perspective. Diego Pavia there for Vanderbilt, and then Bo Pribula from Missouri, Joe. 207.5 for Diego Pavia, 217.5 as a passing prop for Bo Pribula. If you went over or under in either one of those guys, what would be a wager you'd make on them?
I would think it would have to be Pavia, strictly because you look at the front 7 of Missouri, and we talk about Vanderbilt. Missouri's holding opposing offenses to basically 83 rushing yards per game, 2.5 yards per rush. Do we really believe that Vanderbilt's going to run it consistently? I don't believe so. So Pavia needs to attack through the air to open up everything with the rushing attack, and that's where I think it's critical for him to get through his passing yard prop as opposed to Pribula. I think Pribula could still be in the area of $175, $180, and they could still win this game on the road. 2
good athletes show a quarterback, no doubt about it. It's not seeing like the 275 plus here, like more manageable. Why? Because both of these guys can get loose with their legs. If I ask you, we're going to go to the running backs in a second, but the quarterback's on the ground, Joe. Pribula, 34.5. Diego Pavia, identical to what we saw last week at 56.5. If you're taking one quarterback today with those 2 statistics, who are you going with?
I think I'm going to go with Pribula today. And if you watch the game against Alabama, he had a couple of big runs early in that first half, right? And they were able to neutralize Alabama's front 7. And, again, they didn't win the game, but they still were within margin and lost it by 3, had an opportunity to pull it out in the fourth quarter. Pribula is more critical in the ground game than I think Diego is. Diego, even though he's been great on the ground up until this point, Diego needs to do it through the air. Bo needs to do it on the ground.
Keys to victory, obviously we know. Like the Vanderbilt's going to go as far as Diego Pavia takes him. He has a bad game, they're not winning this football game. They know that. But to be honest with Missouri, I look at, Bo Pribula is going to play a big part in it. It just feels like Ahmad Hardy is that guy.
Yeah, and that's why I'm on him.
Price point, Joe, 88.5. Like if he goes over that, I think they win that game. It's almost like you could say a correlation. Donnie, what happens in this game? Well, if Pavia plays bad, the correlation is they lose. If Hardy has 56 yards, I don't think they win.
No. If he goes again with another 50-yard performance, they're going to get blown out in this matchup. But again, Drinkowitz in this spot. He's 9-4 straight up the last couple of years on the road. That benefits him. He's not going to be fazed with this environment, especially going into the Plains last week and pulling out that victory. But it is tempo. When you look at LSU, they didn't run tempo last week. to potentially wear down that front seven. Missouri has the personnel to run tempo and wear down that front seven and run support, and that's where I think Hardy and Prabula could break out with a huge performance, and that's why I actually like Missouri in the ballgame outright.
Wide receivers in this game today, Joe. And again, we don't have that 300-plus pass yarder that we're anticipating today. They're more in the low 200s, which means you're probably going to get some pretty good options at the wide receiver position. Kevin Coleman Jr., Missouri, Joe, 56.5, the leader in the clubhouse with the highest number today with his receiving props. Sherrill's out there, Stowers out there, Johnson. Any looks from the wide receiver position that you might recommend?
Well, I would go Marquise Johnson, the speedster as well from Missouri. I think he could be a benefit in this matchup. Yeah, he's got a lower total. I think for Vanderbilt, it is Stowers. You know, when you look at the third down conversions last week, Stowers it was a main component, and that quarterback to wide receiver relationship. He's a big tight end. He creates mismatches. If you can't cover him in space, it's a problem, and that's where Diego goes early and often. But again, it's all predicated on the rushing attack. Can they get that going against this front seven? If not, then it's predictable third downs. Look, I think that Vanderbilt, to win the game, has to utilize the passing attack, which would mean Pavia through the air and Stowers, and even red zone opportunities for Stowers.
Three guys in the environment we're going to talk about next. Pay dirt picks, Joe. You're going to have to pay a premium to get those. That would be Ahmad Hardy there, minus 185. Cedric Alexander at a minus 130 price, and also Diego Pavia at a minus 130. Everybody else is plus money. Is it the usual suspects on the board for you today, or maybe somebody down the line?
Now, Hardy had 2 rushing touchdowns with 58 yards or 52 yards on the ground, so they still contained him yardage-wise, but he still found pay dirt in the second half of that matchup. I would still lean Johnson, with the passing attack early and often. Prabula would be the guy for me with the RPO game. If we're looking for Vanderbilt, Sherrill and Stowers for me. Again, I think Missouri looks to take away Pavia in the rushing attack. That means the passing attack for Vanderbilt.
Also, when we talk about like pay dirt picks, right? Like, we're looking for instant gratification today, scoring touchdowns and winning point spread bets and total bets, Joe. But let's take a big look here, a big picture look at the SEC. Both of these teams coming in 6-1 on the season, each with 1 loss in the SEC, which means the winner's going to have 1 loss, the loser's going to have 2 losses. The reason I want to ask you this question: Alabama's the favorite, Joe, in the SEC, plus 125 price. A&M plus 360. Things will sort of work itself out in the SEC. But Vanderbilt and also Missouri coming into today in conference play, Joe, to win it, 22-1 apiece. If you had to choose based on what you think is going to happen today and the future here, who would be getting your bet at 22-1?
I would take Missouri, and it's not a knock on Vanderbilt, but the reason why I say that is I just think recruiting-wise, they're built more to potentially make a college football playoff run than potential Vanderbilt. Not to knock Clark Lee in any capacity, but we've seen Missouri go into a bowl game a couple of years ago and knock around Ryan Day, even though they still had, their quarterback out in that matchup. They still, from a physicality perspective, brought it to one of the best teams in the Big Ten and won that ball game outright. So if we're looking big picture, which team potentially can make a national championship run, even though you might not love Bo Prabula, you got to believe in Drinkowitz. If they get this victory, win out, have 1 or 2 losses at large team, I think they could potentially make a better run than Tennessee did last year.
This will be interesting to see, too, because we are going to start, like, you know me, I like Notre Dame 2 losses. And the SEC is a meat grinder every single week, which makes it tough. You lose to Alabama, but 27-24. You go back at the end, you're like, hey, you got beat by 40 by then. That's a different look for the actual committee that's going to be making the decisions. Vanderbilt at home, a top 10 team here, on the road, I should say, playing a top 10 team. That'd be a big victory. But also, you're going to have A&M coming up, and if A&M wins that game against LSU, who knows how high of a ranking team they are. And still, you're going to have to go to Oklahoma in late November here. The schedule is always tough, but boy, if you say, okay, they're going to have 2 losses, you can probably hold that in high regard at the end of the season if you can hold with 2 losses.
They get this victory. They get a victory over A&M. They could afford the Oklahoma loss at the end of the year, depending upon where Oklahoma is. The problem is going to be, Alabama's undefeated because their 1 loss came against Florida State out of conference. So right now it's A&M and Alabama. You still have Georgia to think about that only has 1 loss. This is far from over. Texas, technically, with 2 losses on the year, but 1 is out of conference. They're still in the mix. There's a number of different teams that could get to the college football playoff.
Yeah, by the way, Ole Miss, Oklahoma here. Some rain in the forecast as we're seeing some pictures right there. So that is going to come into play as well. But we have a lot more hot topics to hit coming up next, which includes big game, A&M and LSU. Can A&M actually stay unbeaten in the SEC and move up in the rankings, Joe? An A&M championship for Elko and the boys? We'll talk about it next. You just see Texas in any game, and again, Kentucky used to be able to put up points in the past. 43.5 is crazy because it just feels like Texas is going to come in, play really good defense, and try to squeeze this game out. It'll be interesting to see because nothing got ailed from that victory last week. Texas is back. I'm just being facetious at this point. But if we see one of those performances, 17-14 Texas.
In the fourth quarter.
Yeah, come on.
Right? I mean, really. I mean, they got a gift last week.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, it looks like the Bengals fantasy pieces are back. What did you make of that Joe Flacco performance on Thursday night? Turning back time.
Yeah, it was great for a guy like me with gray in the beard. I love seeing it. I love my representation. But at the end of the day, just from a wagering standpoint, if this continues, it'll give some consistency and it'll give some value back to those tools that you were mentioning on the Bengals.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Defense is above average this year. And I think big picture, they're going to be probably the most consistent moving forward. The problem I have is this guy, Trevor Lawrence, big picture. You got to take the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the ugly sometimes is real ugly. He is not comfortable in the pocket on a consistent basis, and that's a problem.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
We've had an undefeated regular season a couple times in the NFL. The Patriots, of course, did it before losing in the Super Bowl to the Giants. The 72 Dolphins, of course, did it en route to a Super Bowl win. But to go winless is harder than to win every single game. And my New York Jets are well on their way to doing this.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
Going to need Mike to show up tonight, or at least the LSU fans, or at least LSU themselves tonight. They're going to get a test tonight, Joe. You know who's coming to town? It's Texas A&M. Yeah. He's like, that's a nice game, and we're favored by roughly a touchdown or so. Not the case. The look-ahead line had LSU as a favorite. No longer the case, people. -2.5 for Texas A&M on the road, and a total listed at 49.5. Some rainy conditions for Tiger Stadium tonight. Death Valley, it's going to be rocking tonight, where they could salvage their season, Joe, or this could go completely off of the rails.
I told you, they've only been underdogs under the Brian Kelly era 4 times at home. One came last year against Ole Miss. They were 4-point dogs. Won it outright. Yeah. They were 2.5-point dogs against Jalen Milroe. He's still running, where they got abused and got blown out in Death Valley last year. And then in 2022, Hendon Hooker in Tennessee got them as 2.5-point favorites. That game was in the day, not at night. And then they won the game outright, 13-point dogs to win the West against Nick Saban in Alabama. Not an easy game. No offensive identity. Nussmeier's number is 235.5. They are undefeated at home this year, have won their 3 FBS games, Donnie, by only 12 points per game. Yeah. We'll see. They need to bring their lunch pail today because Texas A&M is going to punch them in their mouth. Marcel Reed abused this defense last year. 9 carries, 62 yards, and 3 tutties. I credit Mike Elko for rolling sevens and pulling Connor Wegman last year. Brian Kelly needs to do that in this game. They can't run it. I'm all over Joe Sloan. I told him, take the governor off the offense. Open it up and try to score 40. Will you, please?
Could this be a crypto smash today? And I don't mean on the side, Joe. I don't mean on the total. I'm looking at Garrett Nussmeier. 235.5. You want the governor taken off. Does that mean Bacon and Duncan?
It's rainy.
You can't throw in the rain? It's over?
Well, you tell me it's going to be a wet
Sounds
track.
Like a crypto. Okay, so you're telling me Nussmeier can't throw?
No, he can.
Smashing.
No, it's human.
Who's your pick tonight? Who wins the game?
I'm picking LSU because
it's raining and Nussmeier can't throw you like LSU.
Because again, that defense. Whit Weeks is out. That defense needs to make a statement. I'll give them one more shot. They had an opportunity against Diego Pavia, and they were absolutely gutless in that effort. Third down defense was atrocious. Blake Baker needs to be called out as well because mobile quarterbacks abuse this unit for the past couple of years. You need to change it up. You need to get outside your comfort zone. Harold Perkins, I'm still waiting. You were supposed to be a Heisman contender. Step up, make a play. I think they do that, Donnie, but it's not going to be easy because Marcel Reed and that offense could put up points.
I just like the offense better on A&M tonight. I know it's a tough place to play. It really is, but it just shows you the simple fact that LSU is not a favorite in this game. That's something that catches you off guard, and we'll see where that line goes by game time. You creep to 3, Joe. That could get real interesting. I don't think it gets there, though.
We're looking at multiple books. They're putting out the sides and the handle.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't get more conflicting information. You got 95% of the tickets on BetMGM on LSU. It's crazy when it's unbelievable. I'll just say this as it relates to third downs. LSU needs to convert on third downs. They're converting 42%. They're going up against the number 1 ranked third down defense in all of college football, holding opposing offenses to 22% on third down situations, 6 of 43 over the last 4 games of the regular season in the conference for the Aggies. That's 13%. That's 1 of every 10 third down conversions they're holding opposing offenses to. LSU needs a better effort. Get out of your comfort zone, Joe Sloan, and call some plays today.
By the way, looking at some of the prop bets here for the wide receivers, Joe, I'm seeing LSU Thomas, LSU Green, LSU Brown, 30.5, 47.5, and 36.5. Your boy's not even listed in there. Why?
He came. Aaron Anderson came back from injury last week. He's been a little bit limited. But again, he's a 2-to-1 number for anytime touchdown. If this offense is going to eat today, they need to get those playmakers involved. I don't like Xavier Thomas as much. He's a speedster. I would go to potentially Barryon Brown and trade Des Green, the tight end that they utilized multiple times in back-to-back weeks. But Aaron Anderson, potentially at 2-to-1, I think has great value for an anytime touchdown.
How about the wideouts, Joe, for A&M here? You got and Craver, 54.5 for Concepcion, 62.5 for Craver. I like that offense. Somebody's going to have to eat. Which wide receiver on A&M eats?
Concepcion. He's utilized multiple looks. Not only that, reverses, and if it is going to be a wet track, they could give him some fly sweeps in this ball game. He could still potentially score for an anytime touchdown. But again, it's going to come down to 2, Donnie. Early on, if Marcel Reed can run with a wet track, he might not have to throw in this game. That's why I would still lean to Concepcion. He's utilized a little bit more. But if Marcel Reed could get some real estate with his legs, could be lights out early.
Now, you said also LSU has been struggling on the ground. So I'm looking at a prop here, Caden Durham, 50.5 yards. And we always talk about correlated props because, yes, of course, if these guys hit their props, they're probably going to have a better chance at winning the game. But it just feels to me you cannot be one-dimensional tonight and expect to beat Texas A&M.
But he had the big run late in the third quarter, right, or fourth quarter. He ripped off like a 50-yarder. That allowed LSU to potentially rush for 4.5 yards per carry, so it was misleading. He had one big run that he cut down to the 5-yard line, and that's allowed them to cut it to within 7. But again, Harlan Berry, to me, is interesting. He's a speedster in this type of slop, and Caden Durham held his hamstring at one point yesterday. I'm always concerned with that. Caleb Jackson's been a non-factor. I like Harlan Berry to potentially eat today.
How about some touchdown pay dirt picks here, Joe? Favorite in the clubhouse right now, -145. That's Ruben Owens, the second for Texas A&M, followed by Caden Durham for LSU at -125. Everybody else, Joe, is plus money. Expectations are we're going to get touchdowns. Expectations for you. Who scores the touchdowns?
Well, Marcel Reed, he's got to have great value, I would think. If we're talking Durham and Owens on the number 1, 2, Owens taking over for Le'Veon Moss. Why? Because he abused them last year. You know, if you can't stop Marcel Reed, he's going to go back to the ground game. Why not exploit it? We saw Pavia. I mean, Marcel Reed would be my pick, and Concepcion for A&M. On the flip side for LSU, Aaron Anderson, want to take a shot, maybe Nussmeier on the ground as well. He looks to take the game over.
Let me ask you a question. James Franklin at Penn State, he lost 3 straight football games. He lost his job. I look at Brian Kelly now, has a huge contract. They lost to Vanderbilt. They have A&M at home. He loses this game. You know who else is on deck? At Alabama.
Yeah.
3 straight losses. Is he out? Is he out maybe even if they lose tonight? Being honest.
It wouldn't shock, Donnie, it would not shock me the way this team is played down to the level of competition. He couldn't win at Notre Dame potentially because he couldn't get the quarterback. He got the quarterback. The quarterback won a Heisman in Jaden Daniels, and you still didn't make the playoff with an expanded 12-team layout. You have Nussmeier. You limped to an 8-4 overall record last year. You have 2 losses. You haven't had a quarterback that has thrown this year for over 300. He had 8 games last year. Could we get back to reality?
Does Brian Kelly make it to the final game of the season at number 13, Oklahoma? A lot of that's going to be determined if he can win tonight. You lose at home, they start chanting, firing Brian Kelly. The same thing we do with Napier. He was out of a job, and he will be too. More next. You just see Texas in any game, and again, Kentucky used to be able to put up points in the past. 43.5 is crazy because it just feels like Texas is going to come in and play really good defense and try to squeeze this game out. It'll be interesting to see because nothing got ailed from that victory last week. Texas is back. I'm just being facetious at this point. But if we see one of those performances 17-14 Texas.
In the fourth quarter.
Yeah, come on.
Right? I mean, really. I mean, they got a gift last week.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. It looks like the Bengals fantasy pieces are back. What did you make of that Joe Flacco performance on Thursday night? Turning back time.
Yeah, it was great for a guy like me with gray in the beard. I love seeing it. I love my representation. But at the end of the day, just from a wagering standpoint, if this continues, it'll give some consistency and it'll give some value back to those tools that you were mentioning on the Bengals.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Defense is above average this year, and I think big picture they're going to be probably the most consistent moving forward. The problem I have is this guy, Trevor Lawrence, big picture. You got to take the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the ugly sometimes is real ugly. He is not comfortable in the pocket on a consistent basis, and that's a problem.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
We've had an undefeated regular season a couple times in the NFL. The Patriots, of course, did it before losing in the Super Bowl to the Giants. The 72 Dolphins, of course, did it en route to a Super Bowl win. But to go winless is harder than to win every single game. And my New York Jets are well on their way to doing this.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
Noon kickoff. By the way, Joe, it's about 30 minutes away.
Can't
we
wait.
get you caught up here on SportsGrid College Football Today, Joe. It's Ole Miss and it's Oklahoma, roughly a 5.5-point favorite here for the Sooners at home, taking on Ole Miss in a 52.5. I like this game right off the bat. I'm interested to see, though. You have a loss that the previous game for Ole Miss that's devastating. You got to rebound quickly and go up against a really good defense and a quarterback that's looking to get his team back on the top of the mountain at OU. How do we look at this game as an underdog to Ole Miss where they're roughly catching 6 points here at some outlets?
Yeah, I mean, if you're Ole Miss, you want to try and score fast, I think, and put pressure on Oklahoma's defense. That's going to be easier said than done just because of how physical Oklahoma is. They went up against multiple mobile quarterbacks throughout the year. Bryce Underwood, Jackson Arnold, Lenora Sellers, and they contained them all and won all three of those ball games. They rushed for 171 yards last week. Why is that important? Because Ole Miss can't stop the run. They gave up 221 on the ground to Georgia, 4.5 yards per carry. They're allowing 166 rushing yards per game. That's a heavy dose of Mateer in the ground attack, but also Blaylock. I think Oklahoma wins, but it's on the ground, not through the air.
Let me ask you a question, too, at this, because we do see some elements. And, again, it's not raining hard, but the rain is still there. Could be a slick surface there in Norman. Who does that benefit for you, Ole Miss or Oklahoma?
Oklahoma. I just think they're a little bit more blue-collar. Yeah. They're not as finesse as Ole Miss. Ole Miss is more of a finesse type of attack that is all predicated with the mobility of Trinidad Chambliss on the edge, on the perimeter. If it's going to be a wet track where he can't get his footing, could be a similar performance to what we saw Auburn and Oklahoma play out. Close game, but Oklahoma wins it in the end because of the physicality, and they win it by a touchdown.
How about some props in this game, Joe? John Mateer, 235.5. His passing prop close by is Trinidad Chambliss, 238.5. If I give you one quarterback on his props today, passing, who is it?
Oh, that's tough because
right in the same realm.
I see. I think Oklahoma needs more of the ground attack, and they can be contained. And you look at Mateer in back-to-back games. What has he thrown? 205 and 150. 156 against Texas, and obviously last week against South Carolina. He hasn't even come close to that number since he came back to the injury. Now with the wet track, I'd be more inclined with Chambliss in this matchup, just knowing how Lane likes to run up tempo. You get more times to potentially get yards.
How about this, though, Joe? We talk about the quarterbacks passing. Each one of these guys might have a chance to win this game on the ground. Matier's only listed at 39.5. Chambliss at 36.5. Who's more fleet of feet in this game, Joe, between the quarterbacks?
Matier, I believe more in Oklahoma's defense to potentially sack Chambliss and get losses, which potentially could limit, obviously, his rushing total. Matier, I think they're going to have design runs for Matier and Blaylock in this game to put pressure on OU's Ole Miss's defense. I think that's the recipe. I think Venables is willing to win this game under the 52.5. Kiffin wants game on just the way he did against Georgia last week.
Yeah, it should be a fun one to watch it play out, too, because it's such big stakes still out there. And Ole Miss, again, we talked to Coach Terry Bowden earlier, like dealing with, I'm going to get a big pay upgrade regardless if I stay here or go elsewhere. And sometimes you can make that decision for yourself. It's going to be hard for Lane Kiffin. Let's just say he runs the table and goes out. Like, is there a better job than Ole Miss when you find yourself as like a top 2 seed in the NCAA playoffs?
No, like my point is, like, even Lanning, when you have that train rolling, it's not like if there were 4 teams, meaning if we were in the 14 playoff, I'd say there's no shot that Lane Kiffin stays in Oxford. But with 12 teams, and if you make the college football playoff, why would you leave? You have that train in motion.
Exactly. And you're going to get paid certainly handsomely. Now, granted, Florida could come over the top, but also you're uplifting the family. You've got to get recruited stars.
And his daughter goes to Ole Miss now.
Exactly.
So I'm just saying, that's something
Brings
else.
the daughter to Florida. Maybe she dates a Miami linebacker. You pick up the information on that as well.
He's out yet again today.
Tough scene, man. God doesn't want to get back on the field to save his LSU Tigers at this point. If we do look at the touchdown scores in this game, Joe, between Ole Miss and Oklahoma, Lisi is the favorite, -165. Blaylock -125. Matier -115. Everybody else is plus money on top of that today. The pay dirt picks for touchdown scores today between Ole Miss and Oklahoma. Who you got?
I'm only looking Oklahoma, and I look Matier and I look Blaylock first. I know it's a little bit chalky, but again, I believe Oklahoma's going to make a concerted effort on the ground. And again, I can't look at the wide receivers as much as I can with Oklahoma's ground attack. I think what's the number for Matier 2 touchdowns today on the ground?
Rip it up there. It's got to be a big number.
Let me see.
Right
2.
now. What do you got?
2 for Matier. I think that. Don't laugh. I think Matier for 2 touchdowns is the way to go. Matier's number 480.
How about that? Big price on that point here. By the way, if we do look at OU, Joe, the rest of the year, we're getting some pictures there of Norman. You take a look at some of that rain in the forecast.
Dry.
It looks like it should be fine. We're not going to expect maybe a little slip and slide, but that's about it. But looking at OU the rest of the way, Joe, they had the loss to Texas, which is a shame because Matier wasn't 100%. You put him out there against a good defense, didn't work out in their favor. Bounce back performance against South Carolina. They're going to take on Ole Miss today, which is top 10. Then they're going on the road to Rocky Top, Joe. Then on the road to Alabama. Then home to Missouri and home to LSU?
That's crazy.
What is that schedule?
That is unbelievable. That is a gauntlet. We talked about Oklahoma having one of the hardest schedules, right, in the nation, and that's why they only had a 6.5 win total at the start of the year.
What are you supposed to do with that? Like Billy Napier laughs at that schedule. Take that. We'll be right back. You just see Texas in any game, and again, Kentucky used to be able to put up points in the past. 43.5 is crazy because it just feels like Texas is going to come in, play really good defense, and try to squeeze this game out. It'll be interesting to see because nothing got ailed from that victory last week. Texas is back. I'm just being facetious at this point, but if we see one of those performances, 17-14 Texas
in the fourth quarter,
come on,
right? I mean, really. I mean, they got a gift last week.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. It looks like the Bengals fantasy pieces are back. What did you make of that Joe Flacco performance on Thursday night? Turning back time.
Yeah, it was great for a guy like me with gray in the beard. I love seeing it. I love my representation. But at the end of the day, just from a wagering standpoint, if this continues, it'll give some consistency and it'll give some value back to those tools that you were mentioning on the Bengals.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Defense is above average this year, and I think big picture they're going to be probably the most consistent moving forward. The problem I have is this guy, Trevor Lawrence, big picture. You got to take the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the ugly sometimes is real ugly. He is not comfortable in the pocket on a consistent basis, and that's a problem.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
We've had an undefeated regular season a couple times in the NFL. The Patriots, of course, did it before losing in the Super Bowl to the Giants. The 72 Dolphins, of course, did it en route to a Super Bowl win. But to go winless is harder than to win every single game. And my New York Jets are well on the way to doing this.
The Craig Carton Show. Only on SportsGrid.
The ticker is up here, Joe. 35 minutes of Ole Miss, Oklahoma, getting it underway right at noon. And this is what we talk about, Joe. Elimination Saturday starting to come up. Like, oh, I thought there was a college football playoff. You have to wait for it. Like, no, these teams are handling it on the field. You take a loss here or there, you're going to be out, and another team starts to move up that rankings list. Which, talking, Joe, about the rankings list, sometimes you take a look at. We're sitting here October 25th. A lot of football's been played. Week 9 is upon us here, Joe. And it's time to talk about me and you being the committee on football teams that should get in. And as I said, things will work themselves out on the field, but if things ended today, do you have a good feel on who's actually going to be in and who's going to be out?
I do. I mean, I still think that when you look at the top 3 teams for me, it's Ohio State, Bama, and Georgia. And that's going to potentially shock people because Georgia has one loss, but it's the top-ranked Alabama. Alabama lost to Florida State. I get that, but we're talking right here in Week 9, which just from watching football, and which team do you feel if the playoffs started today, what would be the top 3 teams? And there's no doubting Ohio State being the most complete team in the country now.
Again, things do change once we get to the college football playoff, right? Like, you're going to have tough teams play good other tough teams, and things work themselves out. Don't get me wrong. But if we're looking at it today, like the team that's supposed to win the national championship, it doesn't feel like a cop-out, Joe. It just feels like Ohio State is head and shoulders above because if their offense doesn't work, like, they can pitch a shutout on defense. They're that good.
Yeah. No, I mean, again, Ohio State's defense, led by their new coordinator, Matt Patricia, has done a fantastic job. Caleb Downs and that secondary are very difficult to attack over the top. They've shut down multiple teams in the conference, shut down Texas. That was really an eye-opener for a lot of people in the matchup. And I think if they played any one of these offenses, Ty Simpson or even Gunnar Stockton, that are as hot as the pistol in the conference right now in the SEC, would struggle potentially against that defense. So that's where we look at it right now. But again, when you see the other teams potentially that are in there, Georgia Tech is right now undefeated. They win again today, and they're playing Syracuse, Donnie. That game's not going to be easy, potentially let down, but Georgia Tech can run the table with a dynamic quarterback as well in Haynes King. There are legitimately about 15 to 25 teams that can make the college football playoff at this particular point.
Yeah, bring up Lisi's list right there as we go down that and take a look at Ohio State, the favorite there, Bama, Georgia, A&M, Indiana, Georgia Tech, Oregon, Ole Miss, Vandy, Miami, BYU, and Oklahoma. If I do see that list right there, right?
Yeah.
Because we're not listing it in effect as like that's how, the divisions are going to break down, or the conference is going to break down.
That's just like more of a power ranking.
More of a power ranking system. Obviously, we know who the top of the list is, right? Ohio State, Bama, and Georgia that you have listed. Give me a team down that list that you have rated. So you know what? No fluke here. I think this team has a legitimate chance to make a college football championship appearance or win the college football championship.
I think my number 10 was Oklahoma, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't think they can get in, though, Joe. I'm with you. I listed them on my list right down the bottom, the same as you.
Right.
But, now that I'm just talking over, what they have to actually go through to get to a playoff itself, it's not their fault.
No,
I don't think they make it.
But again, they only have one loss. They win today. Right? They can afford another loss down the stretch.
That's a point.
And here's the thing. So they play LSU. They got blasted by LSU in Baton Rouge. LSU loses today. They might not have a coach.
Yeah.
And it's in Norman. As long as you look at the games in Norman, they have as good a shot to win against any top 10 opponent. So, again, when they're on the road, that's where potentially could be a head-scratcher and a toss-up. But as long as they have Mateer and he's healthy and that defense comes to play, I'll take a shot with Oklahoma. And nobody thought they would be here at this particular point. They got one loss right now.
And I'd say it would have been interesting if Mateer never gets injured and he's completely healthy and rolling in that Texas game, almost like a Texas bailout that they got there. You also take a look at some of those other teams on the list, and we both have Ole Miss in there listed at minus 104 to make the playoff. And again, this is a linchpin. We're not talking about this later on today, like, oh, this is what happens. Like, I'm expecting Ole Miss to go in and play good football, but also if Ole Miss loses, you have the extra pressure rising out there. Like, are you going to be our coach at the end of the year? Can we roll with you? Are the players going to buy in? It feels like they have to win to keep Lane in Ole Miss, and that makes a difference here. Georgia Tech does appear in both of our list here, Joe, which I do find fascinating here because I just like the way they play. But understand this, people. The power rankings of we think we're going to get to the college football playoff. They play in the ACC.
Yeah.
That's the advantage. Oh, Donnie, they're not as good as Oklahoma or Ole Miss.
Yeah.
We understand that. But if you're Oklahoma or Ole Miss and you don't make the college football playoff, the point is, who do we think is making the college football playoff?
Yeah, so Georgia Tech, again, I mentioned they're 16.5-point favorites against Syracuse today. Multiple players out, including their center. I like Syracuse to cover that 16.5-point number today. But again, they go to 8-0. They're undefeated in the conference. But again, that's another conference that we haven't really talked about, like the SEC. SMU is undefeated. You got Louisville that knocked off Miami. Miami has one loss. There's multiple teams that potentially can make a run for an ACC championship. So their backs are still against the wall. Like, Georgia Tech is not a shoo-in right now just because they're undefeated, because they still have to play Georgia at the end of the year as well. Even though it's out of conference, that can knock them out of the playoff.
Let me ask you this question, too, because a lot of times we spend a lot of time talking about, like, the bottom of the board on our list here. Like, oh, it's Georgia Tech for me, Vanderbilt may be able to sneak in. Indiana is minus 4,500 to make the college football playoff, and we think they're going to make it. But the legitimacy of Indiana being a number 2 team, they play good football, don't get me wrong. They're just not a blue blood. It's hard to put them in that pantheon. They can win it all. But, Joe, can they actually win it all?
Yeah, I mean, win it all?
Yeah. Can they knock off Ohio State? Can they beat Ohio State in the by the way, I haven't looked at the schedules. They don't play Ohio State this year, or do they?
They don't.
So they will maybe match up with them in the Big Ten championship game.
Yes.
So they'll probably play each other.
So let me just say this, Donnie. They can win the college football playoff. Mm-hmm. They would need a monumental upset. Like, they would need Georgia, Bama, or Ohio State to get knocked off somewhere down. Like, I just don't think they – think about what happened now. They had the smallest margin of victory, defeat against Notre Dame last year because they threw in 2 garbage touchdowns at the end. But they got abused by Notre Dame in that game. They couldn't do anything.
Physicality.
Physicality. That's my point. So, again – you might be able to do it 1 game. Are you going to be able to do it 3 games?
Yeah.
2 games against the likes of maybe Alabama and Ohio State in back-to-back weeks? Or let's say Georgia or another team? I just don't see it.
By the way, I couldn't stand Signetti last year, Joe.
You love him.
I really appreciate him now. I do. Like,
he's Italian.
Exactly. I'm buying into the mantra of there's people out there that don't like me. I don't care. And your favorite team, we will blow you out too. Like, I just love the way he steps up to the mic and basically the opposite of, like, what Paterno used to do back in the day, Lou Hall. It's like, I don't know how we're going to beat Kent State this week. They're unbelievable. Like, no, Signetti's like, you're really good. We're better. We'll beat you down, and we'll have no problem doing it. And, if you want to, Google it when you find that final score, and we beat your favorite team down. Let's get back to some of the games, Joe, here on the card this afternoon. Big 12 action, 4 o'clock. Baylor versus Cincinnati. You look at the line at the opening number, 4.5. That's dipped down to 3.5, Joe, but we are expecting points between Baylor and Cincinnati, 67.5.
Yeah, back-to-back road games for Baylor and Sawyer Robertson. They lose 42-36. Another pathetic effort. They fall behind by double digits. They had an hour-and-a-half rain delay, lightning, and that really dampened that game. But I think they match up very well against Cincinnati. Again, you're going to get Baylor's best effort. I think they're better than their record states at 4-3. And again, Sorsby and that offense for Cincinnati with that rushing attack are very physical. But for me, I still think the speed of Baylor could be the difference. Yeah. I like the over 66.5, but I don't like Baylor to win the game outright.
I like it. By the way, I've seen some clips here from Ole Miss and OU, Joe. Do you like when coaches interlock with their players like they're going to go for a kickoff?
That's Venables?
I like them to get fired when they do that.
Why?
James Franklin got fired, and he got fired because he led his team out of the tunnel.
So
you're
what?
not part of the team. You're not.
He's the head coach.
You're not going down on kickoffs. You're not playing quarterback. What is this?
He's the head guy.
I don't care.
What do you mean?
Let your football team stand. Do you see NBA teams come out there in the layup line with their head coaches?
Don't bring up professional. This is college.
Do you see hockey coaches out there like skating around with their players pregame like, hey, I'm part of the team? We don't see that. You don't see Major League Baseball managers out there fielding ground balls before the game and turning a double play. Get him out.
He's not kicking field goals. He's just walking out with the team.
Probably wants to, if he can make a change, he probably wants to run down a kickoff here and go chase it down.
Brad
Why do we import? The only guy that can do that there legitimately,
Venables looks sharp, by the way.
is Mario Cristobal. He should be able to bring his team
look
back
at this
out there.
anti-committee. That's me on the right.
I look like I look like I could be a villain on like a movie.
I keep telling you, AI, AI can't make me look better than what I already look. It's incredible.
Joe can't look any better, even though I'm the better looking guy. We'll be right back. You just see Texas in any game, and Kentucky used to be able to put up points in the past. 43.5 is crazy because it just feels like Texas is going to come in, play really good defense, and try to squeeze this game out. It'll be interesting to see because nothing got ailed from that victory last week. Texas is back. I'm just being facetious at this point. But if we see one of those performances, 17-14 Texas.
In the fourth quarter.
Yeah, come on.
Right? I mean, really. I mean, they got a gift last week.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, it looks like the Bengals fantasy pieces are back. What did you make of that Joe Flacco performance on Thursday night? Turning back time.
Yeah, it was great for a guy like me with gray in the beard. I love seeing it. I love my representation. But at the end of the day, just from a wagering standpoint, if this continues, it'll give some consistency and it'll give some value back to those tools that you were mentioning on the Bengals.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Defense is above average this year, and I think big picture they're going to be probably the most consistent moving forward. The problem I have is this guy, Trevor Lawrence, big picture. You got to take the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the ugly sometimes is real ugly. He is not comfortable in the pocket on a consistent basis, and that's a problem.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
We've had an undefeated regular season a couple times in the NFL. The Patriots, of course, did it before losing in the Super Bowl to the Giants. The 72 Dolphins, of course, did it en route to a Super Bowl win. But to go winless is harder than to win every single game. And my New York Jets are well on their way to doing this.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
Texas back. Do we have to scream, Texas is back? They're back as a favorite today in Stark Vegas, taking on Mississippi State. 7.5-point favorite, total 47.5. Are we believing in Arch? Are we believing that Texas has a pathway into the college football playoff or smokescreen?
They would need a miracle to get into the college football playoff. Forget that. They should. This is one of my better picks today. Smash. Miss State. Really? Now, Miss State's a public pick by a lot of gurus out there. A lot of people taking the points plus the 7.5. We saw, just so you know, 7.5's early. Middle of the week, it got down under a key number, 6.5. I did take the 6.5 with Texas. It's back up to 7.5. It's back-to-back road games for the Longhorns. They struggled against an inept offense in Kentucky. They win it in overtime. Now you got to go back on the road. There's mention now Jimmy Sexton working the phones for Steve Sarkisian, wants to go potentially back to the NFL. Bro. He loses, he will be in the NFL after this. From a talent perspective, there is no reason why Texas shouldn't win this game with or without Arch Manning, a fourth-string quarterback, by 14-plus points. They have better talent, better defense, and a Miss State team, even though they're at home, that has lost now 3 straight SEC games, even though they covered, they get steamrolled by Texas today.
High stakes in college football to make the college football playoff here. Auburn, I don't know what type of expectations they basically had coming into the season as winning a championship, but you figured they would be competitive in the SEC. They are competitive. They just don't rack up the victories here in the SEC.
Yeah.
They're going to take on Arkansas today, Joe. They opened up as a favorite, -1.5. They're no longer the favorite. -2.5 as a favorite for Arkansas. Could this be a coach firing day in the SEC?
Well, it's possible. If Hugh Freeze and Auburn lose, he could be out. I mean, they started the season 3-0. They've lost 4 straight conference losses, close ones, but it doesn't matter. You still lost and didn't pick up victories. These teams are a combined 0-7 in the SEC, and I've been on Arkansas on back-to-back weeks. Took the points against Tennessee, cover. Took the points last week against A&M, cover. Love Mike Washington. Shout out New York because he is a physical runner, 6'2", 230. Love Taylon Green, but I just think when you look at this game, it's wet track, number one. Which defense do you believe more in? Much better defense by Auburn. Holding opposing offenses 2.8 yards per rush, less than 90 yards per game. Give me that front seven. I think Auburn's built for this game. Catching now 2.5. I think they win it outright, Donnie. And the emotional losses for Arkansas. Lost to Notre Dame. Lost to Tennessee. Lose a rivalry game. I'd much rather take a shot with Auburn that needs the game more than Arkansas.
Stoops says he don't want to leave Kentucky here, and I don't know if the team will actually get pushed out if they take another loss today. But Rocky Top travels over to take on Kentucky, Joe. 7.5-point favorites, down from 8.5 at the early line. 54.5 as a total here. Tennessee and Kentucky in the SEC.
They've won 4 straight in the series. Tennessee, they won last year 28-18. If Texas loses, this is the backup plan. Tennessee to win this game by 20. Another dead football team by Mark Stoops. They had their Super Bowl against Texas. You lost in overtime. You can't score more than 10 points in a ball game. Tennessee should be able to put up 30 with Joey Aguilar and that offense. They got Bishop. They got, obviously, Star Thomas going too late in that game. I think they run it. They throw it. They have a significant speed advantage over Kentucky. I think they win it by 20-plus.
Let's wrap around on some of these games here, Joe, that we're talking about in the SEC. Alabama taking on South Carolina. This game listed at the opening number at 13.5. That's shrunken now to 11 and 11.5 and some 10.5, Joe, depending on where you're shopping at in the total of 47.5. It feels like one of those games where, hey, Alabama knows they have to win, but the bigger picture is down the line. Right. Could they overlook South Carolina at home today?
I don't think they overlook them. I just think from a schematic advantage, Alabama's not as dominant in run support. That potentially could allow South Carolina to eat on the ground, to shorten the game and potentially be in this matchup from the spread perspective. Again, Lenore Sellers took this game over last year against Alabama. This is South Carolina's Super Bowl. Last week, South Carolina was one of the most heavily bet public teams. Basically, 92% of the tickets were on the Gamecocks. They got blown out. I don't think anybody's going to potentially dive right back. Give me South Carolina. I think they keep it close.
Stanford and Miami. We don't think this game is going to be close. If it is close, somebody might be getting fired too. Talking about Mario Cristobal, let down last week. And by the way, it wasn't as if Miami was coming off the win of the century against the number 1 team on a short work week. Miami had a bye week to get ready for Louisville at home and still came up lame. You can't get down to good football teams early. That's what they did. Stanford, on the other hand, knocked off Florida State. And Florida State's like, we're so bewildered, we don't even want to fire our head coach. We'll wait till the end of the season. Stanford doesn't have much of an offense. That's why this game's listed at 45.5. Miami needs to get back to a ground and pound, which I'm with probably most of the nation saying, Miami wins, but I don't know if Miami wins by 35 because sometimes you can play that motivation like, yeah, we need a big victory. No, Miami just needs a victory that's convincing, and it doesn't mean it has to be by over 4 touchdowns.
No, I agree, and they contain, for the most part, Florida State's a rushing attack that's averaging 294 on the ground, right? And so when that game last week, Stanford was holding opposing offenses to 111 rushing yards per game. They backed it out with another dominant effort. But then now they got to go cross-country, 12 o'clock kick or early kick in Miami. That's a problem, and I think that's why you're seeing that. But, Don, I still think they could shut down the rushing attack enough where they could be within 4 touchdowns. I mean, we're not talking 14 or 17 and a half. We're basically talking Stanford's up now 30-0 to start the game. With Frank Reich playing a little bit with house money, I don't love Stanford. But in this game, I have no confidence in Carson Beck and the Hurricanes.
How about the 45.5? I mean, it is so low, and Stanford doesn't have a great offense. But Stanford can't get 17, Joe? They can't get 17 points.
So you think, I mean, I mean, yeah, I think
Joe,
they.
30-17.
Here's the thing: if Miami wins, they're going to win what, 50-10. I mean, it's going to be one of the like if Miami covers this line, they're not winning like 37.
33 to nothing.
No, I like the over. I mean, you're telling me. Here's the thing: I think Stanford could put up some points.
Yeah. How about this game, Joe? Cloudy conditions, no rain. BYU, Iowa State. 2.5-point favorite for Iowa State. Rocco Becht and the boys. Can they pull? Record-wise, it would be an upset, but not game-wise. They're favored.
No, they're favored again, and I think they're favored for a reason. Better quarterback, or should I say more experienced quarterback, and playing at home is the difference. I would lay it with Iowa State in this ballgame.
Yeah, we'll see if Iowa State snaps back out of here. The Big 12, sort of like almost like a forgotten conference this year, as you worry so much about the SEC and the Big 10 at this point right now. But the next segment coming up, Joe, we get the people ready for kickoff. We're under 10 minutes away. Best bets, big games, and prop bets, all coming your direction. Why? Because that's what we do, Joe. SportsGrid, college football today. It's Donnie Rightside. It's Joe Lisi. One more segment. We go with a bang. You just see Texas in any game, and again, Kentucky used to be able to put up points in the past. 43.5 is crazy because it just feels like Texas is going to come in, play really good defense, and try to squeeze this game out. It'll be interesting to see because nothing got ailed from that victory last week. Texas is back. I'm just being facetious at this point. But if we see one of those performances 17-14 Texas.
In the fourth quarter.
Yeah, come on.
Right? I mean, really. I mean, they got a gift last week.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, it looks like the Bengals fantasy pieces are back. What did you make of that Joe Flacco performance on Thursday night? Turning back time.
Yeah, it was great for a guy like me with gray in the beard. I love seeing it. I love my representation. But at the end of the day, just from a wagering standpoint, if this continues, it'll give some consistency and it'll give some value back to those tools that you were mentioning on the Bengals.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Defense is above average this year, and I think big picture, they're going to be probably the most consistent moving forward. The problem I have is this guy, Trevor Lawrence, big picture. You got to take the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the ugly sometimes is real ugly. He is not comfortable in the pocket on a consistent basis, and that's a problem.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
We've had an undefeated regular season a couple times in the NFL. The Patriots, of course, did it before losing in the Super Bowl to the Giants. The 72 Dolphins, of course, did it en route to a Super Bowl win. But to go winless is harder than to win every single game. And my New York Jets are well on their way to doing this.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
Big game, big bets, big show, 12 o'clock kickoff. We got to get you guys ready to go. And this is what we do, Joe. We take a look at games like Missouri and Vanderbilt and say, you know what? Slight favorite here toward Vanderbilt. I like Vanderbilt. I'm laying the 2.5 points. I look at the total and say, you know what? It could be around that range. I like Pavia to go over his 56.5 yards, Joe. And I know you're backing me up on this.
No, I'm not. I'm taking the other side. I really like Drinkwitz, and I like Ahmad Hardy to bounce back with a huge effort. I took him for 110-plus yards on the ground at plus 169. I think it's the speed advantage of Missouri. They can exploit that defense that LSU couldn't do last week. And I like this Missouri defense holding opposing offenses 2.8 yards per carry, 83 rushing yards per game. I'm taking a shot. I think they win this ball game outright.
I got you there listed with Missouri, Joe, money line plus 124, Missouri plus 2.5, and Ahmad Hardy 90-plus rushing yards. And, of course, your boy goes, me, Vandy minus 2.5, Pavia 56.5. Why is that? That same exact card I had last week over LSU, 2.5. Bang, 56.5. Bang. Double bangs in this game. I don't see any way I can lose in this game,
well, how do you lose? Because that's it, right?
Easy. Just easy.
Easy.
You know this is going to be easy? Texas A&M, the better football team over LSU. Oh, look, another 2.5-point line for LSU. For me, I like the Texas A&M Aggies to go on the road and say, we're the favorites, we're the better football team, and I'm laying the 2.5 in this game with the Aggies to get the outright victory over LSU.
I'll reluctantly take the 2.5. I need to see it from Brian Kelly. I need to see it from both.
But why are you being reluctant, though? Why don't you just go the opposite way
because
like
they were
A&M?
gutless. No, because
you might like A&M here.
No. The Tigers are dominant at night in Death Valley. This is a make-it-or-break-it game. They still have a 15% chance to make the college football playoff. It starts tonight. You need to run the football. We'll see if they could do that, but I need Nussmeier to ball out. I like Aaron Anderson. They don't have a total for him, but 2-1 anytime touchdown for me. Give me the Bayou Bengals plus the points and on the money line.
Now, answer me this in the fourth quarter. If A&M is up double digits with 3 minutes to go, like what's going on down there? Are they chanting? Is it over? Does he
They'll be
accept
gone
the
by
resignation?
halftime. No,
are they chanting fire, Brian
probably
Kelly?
Yeah,
clap,
it would
clap.
be warranted. It would be. I mean, you won a national championship in 2019. You're getting top 5, top 10 recruiting classes each and every year. You had the quarterback back to back to back to back. How many more chances are you going to get? I mean, really, what are we doing here?
By the way, also, and I don't know the depth chart for LSU. Like Nussmeier hasn't been bad, but he hasn't been what with the anticipation we expected. He loses tonight. Is somebody else coming in?
Well, they have Van Buren, the backup that transferred in from Miss State. He's more of a mobile guy. They didn't even utilize him in red zone opportunities. I will say this. We talk about Nussmeier, not one game under his belt this year where he's thrown for over 300 yards. Last year he had 8 performances, and they were 6-2 in those games, Donnie, and won by basically almost 14 points per game in the victories. Their identity is gone. They have no offensive identity, and it starts with their OC, their gutless OC, Joe Sloan. Wake up.
What about the total in that game, Joe? 49.5, down from 52.5. Is rain going to make that big of a difference
No,
tonight?
but if A&M is winning, they're gonna win, putting up 30. And LSU's going to have to match. I mean, at the end of the day, A&M could run the football, whether it be with Owens or Marcel Reed. They're going to have success on the ground more so than LSU. But this is a get-right spot. You have to bring your lunch pail. You have to bring an uppercut and take it to the Aggies tonight.
How about a lunch pail game coming up right at 12 noon here? Great game in the SEC. Ole Miss fighting Oklahoma. That line now sits between 5.5 and 4.5, depending on where you're shopping at here as a favorite for Oklahoma over Ole Miss. And a total, Joe, 52.5. Slightly rainy conditions. Doesn't look like any wind. Shouldn't be any effect in that game. But this looks like one that's going to help decide the SEC because of how tough that Oklahoma schedule is. And also, both of these teams one loss in the SEC. You have aspirations to win this league if you win this game.
Yeah, I don't know. Ole Miss, it's tough. I think just from a schematic advantage, I give the edge to the Oklahoma's defense, give the quarterback advantage to Mateer over Chambliss. Back-to-back road games, I look for Blaylock, I look for Mateer to step up, and I look for that front seven of Oklahoma to contain mobile quarterbacks just the way they did against all 3 that I mentioned earlier, and they contained Trinidad Chambliss today. Again, we saw 4.5s, 5.5s. It fluctuated back and forth. This is one of the games I think we have 50% almost either way. It wouldn't shock me if either team wins, but I like the Sooners.
You take a look at the points, too. Open up at 50.5, Joe. That's higher at a lot of outlets here because most people say Oklahoma's defense is really good. How about this bet, contrarian for me, Joe? Ole Miss team yards as a team over 364.5. I think we move the football in this game.
Donnie, they put up 500 total yards almost last week. I mean, it's possible that they could put up yards on Oklahoma's defense. If they start fast, it's game on. They're going to push tempo in this matchup.
Look at that. Middle of, actually, say late October. Joe, we're going to do a show next week. It's in the month of November already.
And the playoff odds will be out, meaning we'll have those first playoff rankings.
August, September, October, into November.
Can't wait.
What are we, like halfway through the season? Because we still got to go all the way through November, all the way through December, all the way through January. It feels like we're going to be on this desk bringing all that information to you people out there in the streets here. It's what we do. It's Donnie Rightside. It's Joe Lisi. It's the SportsGrid Network. College football today. The best part about it, Joe, we'll see you next week on Saturday.
Very young team outside of Durant. They're going to be an impossible out in a 7-game series, and I'm predicting it right now. If the seeding lines up, you are getting the Thunder and the Rockets in the Western Conference Finals. There's not another team in the West that's going to be as good as the Rockets are when we get to playoff time.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
I don't want people to stop discounting how good of a coach Rick Carlisle is, and I think they're going to find a way to get it done. I think they're going to be better than people think, and I also think if that's the case, then I'm fading someone in that division. You know who I'm fading, and that's the Milwaukee Bucks, who have now cut 2 players this year so that they can bring back both Antetokounmpo to play with Giannis.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
People who filed it are actually representatives of Chicago, so they're from the city. They're kind of saying, this is really going to cripple the industry if we do this even more. I think it's really important when we talk about this stuff because so many places want to keep taxing sports betting more and more and more, which is well within their right, but there gets to a point where the bubble bursts and sports books either don't want to do business or they change the way they do it by passing it down to the customer.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Football contest season is back, and so is the Las Vegas Football Contest Show. Season 2, the sharpest football contest show in the land. Focusing on all 3 Circus Sports contests and the Westgate Superbook Super Contest, we handicap the games and release our contest picks every week of the season. Featuring Super Contest champions Brady Cannon, James Salinas, and former NFL player Mike Pritchard, all team will have you prepared this season like none other. Check us out every weekend right here on Sports.